Howdy, of you delicious people. I'm here today to review Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Season 1, episodes 37 through 41. So, this one, for this review, is to be fairly important because I love mirror matches, and I am to also enjoy the concept of just, like, mirror entity being a villain, like so much so that I wanted like a whole Power Ranger season just built on like the Rangers facing off against this just kind of mirrorverse like thing where you would go on and have these henchmen or lackey like characters. They're all made of like mirrors, and maybe the main villain would also have like his own mirror thing about him, or maybe something quite different. But that would all lead to, within that same mirror world, there'd be like a ranger that comes out of that, and it would be like this mirror ranger, which uh, eventually is to like be having the ability to like turn into multi different colors for whatever situation is to need it, or is to go on and have this mirror ranger have its personality like askew so much so it becomes like multiple different rangers at any point in time, um, beyond just certain specific colors. Like it is to also just have certain specific personalities, and eventually, like a culminated all of that into like having this ranger eventually being called like the All Ranger, where like you come to find that there is just this weird collective that has never been known by the Power Rangers that like has one uh, body like sharing all of these Rangers, and some are good, some are bad, but either way they're sharing this whole body together, and they conflict, and they implode or explode or whatever. But it all becomes like very interesting to see eventually how these stories all play out with this one character that is uh, kind of uh, the cause of it all or whatever. But with that said, I'm sure like a show would not have to want to like tackle that kind of thing, because reasonably you'd have to go on and have to like pay so many different uh like characters to be involved in one being for a brief amount of time. Um, but then also you would probably not have a like maybe a comic book would tackle it. I don't know. Maybe it'd be fun. But anyways, so but that was just kind of a fun idea in my head of just playing with a mirror ranger and how that could be like unique, unless it already had been done at some point. Like maybe someone would point that out to me, and I'd be like, "Oh yeah, I never watched that season," or "Oh yeah, I never heard about that thing," and uh, whatever. I know that there's like Megaforce. They eventually become different Rangers, but that's not the same idea of which that I thought about. Um, but anyways, maybe there's a Sentai thing. Who knows? But anyways, let's go on and let's talk about these 5 episodes. So, a bad reflection on you was the doppelganger episode that I was really happy that I was going to go on and see, and have a villain that ends up just being called Twin Man, which is like, here's a missed opportunity. You probably could have gone on and called this monster Mirage, and that would have been kind of cool to kind of play on the whole like mirror and like Mirage that isn't quite real. But oh well, like I guess that's just like they call it just Twin Man because I guess it made sense. Uh, but so I think the only bad thing in the Better Reflection on You episode is I think they spent a lot more time on the whole uh like the Rangers being out of costume and them like wreaking havoc on the town, instead of spending more time on the actual like, okay, the Rangers are fighting themselves, and they're also going to go on and fight this monster, And so, really, with that, I think that's the only weak part of that episode. But I liked the idea. I thought the idea was a lot better than others. And then also, uh, weirdly enough, I think I did remember this episode clearly because the Rangers eventually go on to get into detention for the first time. And I think I did remember the Rangers going on and figuring out a way to kind of uh, m- uh, teleport out of detention. But again, I didn't remember anything else about this episode. So weirdly enough, yeah, like I knew bits and pieces about this episode, but I didn't remember the end goal, which was the whole mirror thing. But entertaining episode. It goes on and definitely is to be on my top 10. Like I think it could be on the top 10 as a joke to like if this is going to be the very first Power Rangers episode you ever show anybody, it would be kind of funny because they're going through the episode and they're thinking like, wait a minute, like the Power Rangers like good guys or bad guys, and then you find out, oh yeah, like the Power Rangers are being framed in this episode, and then it's like, oh okay, so the real Rangers are going to come in, and then they're going to, oh yeah, like it's kind of a joke to play on somebody who's never watched the show to have this be their first episode. Um, and that would be kind of this funny thing to throw at somebody. Um, and that's probably why I would have this episode really that high as a joke to someone. But then also it ends up just becoming a really entertaining episode, anyways. And then also like for how like I feel that Mighty Morphin Power Rangers or Power Rangers in general, like it's always known that the characters go into detention and they're just bad seeds. So this ends up also going on and starting the origin of that. And so yeah, so uh like episode 38, A Bad Reflection, is gonna end up being number 3 on my top 10 list easily. And then we also go on and have really 3 other episodes. And also, if I didn't mention anything about the cleanup crew, the cleanup crew is really just like how can we milk out this whole pollution angle like to our heart's content, like how can we milk out recycling and like stretch that out. I'm legitimately watching in episode 37 Jason and Zach and they're like crushing cans creatively, and I'm like, wow, this is what we're doing in the episode. Like this is what they're paying these people to do, and this is what I'm freaking watching with my time. Like, I could be watching way better Power Rangers episodes than this. Um, and so yeah, so like, really, like the cleanup clue is like one of the more boring episodes, and like immediately when they had that whole uh video project thing, I was like, okay, this is so boring, but I honestly think weirdly, like the only counter effect that the cleanup crew episode does is it creates a really good bulk episode, weirdly. Like it finally breaks bulk away from just being the bully that runs in and is like, well, how can I um put mud in your eye in this episode, and then realize that he's just gonna put mud in his own eye and fall on a banana peel and uh, figure out a way to limp away. Which literally in this episode we actually have Bulk who slips on a banana peel. Um, but yeah, but this is one of the best I think Bulk episodes that I've watched so far, which is sad because this character has a really long stretch of history of being in this show. Uh, anyways, he's the best thing of a bad episode. That's kind of weird. Um, but so let's go on into the Doomsday two-parter. Really, if you are a Megazord fan, like this is gonna be a whole slew of that. Obviously, like I had just seen other episodes where I'm like, man, they focus on Megazords a lot, and they wanted to take this two-parter to do the exact same thing. And if you haven't watched later seasons like Beast Morphers, where they tend to do the whole Morphex like tower defense thing, and that's how they build like the whole like um, Megazord versus Megazord battle in like the early parts of the episode, and then eventually they come back to it. But um, like Doomsday like really is interesting because it's a two-parter. And it's like, okay, what happens if the Rangers go on and defeat the monster with the Megazord, but like the monster just comes right back and just resurrects itself. What are you gonna do then? It's like, yeah, about that. And so all of a sudden the Rangers have to realize that they have to like rush out to still try to fight this monster with their Megazord that's like half operational, and they're still desperate to cling on to any little scrape or scrap of power, and there is none that exists because they keep calling for like emergency power or extra this or extra that, and there is none. There obviously is none. So eventually it's to see how like what happens if it goes to absolute zero and like the Megazord absolutely loses. But then again, we don't have them rushing out to go to Ninjors or Dulcias or whoever the heck else for newer powers or whatever. Or okay, we need to find the Zeo crystals now because we just need different Zords. No, it's not like that. And I don't quite remember how it plays out where they go from the Dino Megazord to then the Thunder Megazord or whatever goofy thing where they switch from uh, the lions and the unicorns and the I don't quite remember how that plays out, why they had to switch those Zords, but beats me. It's been a while since I've actually seen that transitional episode. But yeah, so and then lastly, we have Rita's Seed of Evil, which really they take a long time to cook that whole seed thing, and really in between that, you just have to have the Rangers that get distracted a lot. Um, and oh, also, funny thing for that Doomsday thing, when we have to play up the fact that we have to just kind of stretch more time, and Billy has to go all the way to his place, and then Goldar appears. I'm like, oh, okay, so the Rangers are gonna finally duke it out against Goldar, and they don't. They just teleport conveniently in time, and then I'm like, well, like that's a ruined opportunity. So we're never gonna have like Goldar like facing off against the Rangers, without them being morphed for once and seeing like a team versus Goldar, like how strong Goldar really is, and so on and so forth, to just kind of see that fight play out because we've seen Goldar like obviously like swat like flies of individual characters like Tommy or Jason, um, and them not being morphed, but it would be kind of interesting to see like if the numbers game plays into like how strong uh, Goldar can't be with unmorphed Rangers. I'm just kind of curious about that. But again, sadly, we don't see that. So but as you can see from Rita's Seed of Evil, how entertained I was by that episode, that I want to jump back and just talk about Doomsday more. Um, yeah, it's a lot of just distractions and biting for time. The best thing about the whole Seed of Evil episode is finally when the Rangers are rushed to go to Zordon to be like, well, hey, we didn't read the script this week. Tell us, Zordon, what happened. And Zordon's like, well, I don't even really know. And then so the Rangers just kind of take it upon themselves to just be like, well, okay, like if Zordon doesn't even know what's going on, then how about we just take it upon ourselves? And like, so Jason goes on and does like his own investigation, which leads to the answer, which then gets the Rangers to just be like, okay, well, we gotta like help Jason, and then figure out what Jason has already found out, and then like we'll kind of keep going along with the story, and definitely see that the Rangers are gonna like just be eating up time for the octo plant to bloom. So, with that said, I don't know if I've said the top 10 yet because eventually I say so much stuff that at some point um, stuff gets over my head. So I honestly want to go on and bring back an episode that I didn't think I was going to bring back and put on this top 10, but it's probably going to be on here for a brief time, anyways, because there's going to be another episode that I feel is going to be better than this called On Fins and Needles. But I think Gung Ho is a good episode. The only thing is, it's just not going to probably be on this list for long. Um, but yeah, so Gung Ho is probably going to be number 10 on here. And we'll just bump things alongside. So, Green with Evil, Green Candle, A Bad Reflection on You is the top three. And then at the bottom, we again will have Gung Ho, but eventually it'll get replaced. And we'll go with the recapping if you guys haven't seen any of the other episodes. Or any of the other reviews. Power Rangers Punk or Power Rangers Punked. I don't remember the last word of that episode. And then Pressing Engagement, Food Fight, I Guy, top 10. That's the top 10 temporarily. I know there's a couple of spots left, but we're going to have quite a bit of episodes to still pick and choose from, which are probably better quality episodes compared to some of these that may get replaced at some point, but who knows? There seems after 41, there's going to be 42 that may be a better Pudgy Pig episode than Food Fight was. Who knows? I'll have to check that out. And there's also just some interesting stuff coming down the road. There's going to be maybe that Billy episode where he's afraid of fish, that maybe that could crack the top 10. Who knows? But anyways, looking at my crystal ball of future episodes. But anyways, let's go on and let's get into full-on spoilers about these episodes, because I know that part is going to take forever. And so, with that said, if you know that Bad Reflection on You is on the top 10, it's probably a really good episode, I feel. Doomsday, I would go on and I would say, like, I would recommend for people to go on and watch it. Even if you have probably seen a load of Megazord stuff and you've gotten tired of it, like, I still think that Doomsday was an entertaining enough two-parter. And then everything in between that, yeah, like, I would just completely skip Cleanup Club, if I'm being honest, even though, again, it's probably one of the better bulk episodes. But I would just skip that whole, it's so boring. Rita's Seed of Evil, I'd probably just skip that one too. So, hey, 3 out of 5 is not bad. So let's go on and, like, at least we're not batting like 500 here. So, with that said, let's get into these episodes. So, Cleanup Club. So, the beginning of this, we have Angel Grove High. So, we would come to find that our students within this class are having some video project that they're doing. And so, Bulk ends up coming to class very unusually, acting from his normal way of being an a-hole to everybody. I'm gonna go on and I'm gonna be very adult here, and I'm going to really go on and probably at some point have some really goofy, weird jokes. But really, it's just to be funny, because anything else that I can possibly think of during these reviews like have to be some kind of weird, goofy joke to really just like remember what's going on in the episode. So, Bulk is acting unlike himself. So he walks in and it's him being nice to people. It's like, okay, this is weird. But we find out the reason of that is because there's a camera in front of him ran by a guy named Skull. So we desperately have Miss Appleby, who is like kind of bringing it, like, come on, Bulk and Skull, like, sit down so we can start class. And so Bulk is going on and being nice, and he's mentioning how, uh, like, Miss Appleby is this great teacher and this and that. It's like, okay, like, what's wrong with you, Bulk? And he goes on and sits in his desk, and then weirdly Skull is asking Bulk, it's like, well, hey, like, can you like just kind of sit down and like this way and so Bulk all of a sudden is trying to like figure out how to like perfectly sit in his desk to really look more like kind of camera appealing at a certain angle. And then all of a sudden, like, I think the desk breaks or like Bulk falls over and like haha everyone laughs at him. So but anyways, back to the video project that is to be the theme of this class. So come to find out, like, Trini is to already have done this video essay about pollution. And while I was watching this video essay thing, like, I was thinking in my mind, I'm like, the person who's playing Trini in this episode, like, I'm curious if, like, she looks at the show and, like, she sees it as being, like, very rewarding to, like, be doing these kinds of episodes. Because it seems like in episodes before she was going on and doing the whole pollution uh with Kimberly, and like they were like duking it out with the putties and whatever. So like I was always curious about how specifically the actor who played Trini, like how she felt about these episodes. Like if she thought that they were really rewarding at some points, or like if she thought that they were boring or whatever. Who knows? Like sadly enough, like the only people who would ever go on and know that is now whoever is really just left of that Mighty Morphin Power Rangers cast, or anybody writing or directing the show who maybe at some point like had some 2 cents to say about the filming of these episodes. But anyway, like that's just the thing that just popped in my mind. Like I felt that this might have been rewarding for the character that played Trini for some of the stuff that she goes on and does. But anyways, moving on. Uh, so Trini does this video about pollution, and we end up seeing these shots of all this trash all over the place, all over the planet, and whatever. And immediately, again, whenever you keep saying the word pollution, you end up thinking of Captain Planet in my brain. And then immediately it just reminds me of that theme song, Captain Planet, he's the hero, take pollution down to zero. That's all. That's all that just jumbles in my brain. Because again, like also when really looking at this specific episode, you're like, man, like the Rangers are being so close to Planeteers. It's like they might as well have the gold thing over their chest, um, or just have the rings that do the things and Earth, Water, Fire, Go Planet. Yeah, like. Uh, anyways, moving on. So Mrs. Appleby says that pollution is a serious concern, and Billy echoes that concern while saying all of his jibber jabber of all this stuff. And even Kim is going on and turning and saying, like, well, what should we do? And I was like, man, this is such like a PSA. It's not even kidding itself. Like, it's not trying to avoid that it's not just a PSA whatsoever. So like after this whole boring slog of like Trini going on and being like, well, hey, like, yeah, we need to get together and we need to like do this pollution drive and like we need to go on and find all of this garbage so we can throw it all away and that's what we need to do, blah blah blah. So cue us in the youth center. So Bulk is going into the youth center and he's flexing his muscles and he's going on and saying like, yeah, like I go to the community center because I want to get fit and I want to like. So I'm like, all right, so we're going from bulk to buff. You know what I'm saying? Like, all right, like so. And again, like even though I know this is all a ruse, I know that Bulk is going on and putting up this facade that he really isn't this character. But again, I just found it refreshing. I found it refreshing that Bulk was lying to my face. It was nice. So uh, so when Bulk is going on and trying to do the machines, because we actually have multiple machines seemingly in this youth center now, specifically for this episode. Um, but the machines that I think are seen in this, they don't really do anything. Like they don't really do much, and like for you, like I think one was like a neck machine. Like all the ones that they were kind of using, like nothing came to mind that I could just point out, and because like if anything, when you actually saw them using the machines, like they were done so quickly that there's nothing that I'm like, oh yeah, well like that would be a good machine to use, or that would be an awful machine to use. Why do they even have that? Um, like nothing was good enough of worth my time to have an opinion on. So that was sad. Like I probably should have gone on and just kind of rewatched that moment again and just kind of took notes, but I didn't, sadly enough. But again, none of the equipment I think was worth um, needing to say that it's like, oh, it's good that they use that machine or not. Whatever. Let's move on. I waste too much time talking about that. So Skull wanted to go on and be a part of the video, and Bulk is like, well, who's gonna run the camera? And then they look at Ernie. It's like, hey, Ernie, you want to make a buck? Here's a quarter. Like, and Ernie was so pleased to be able to be the cameraman because he's looking at Bulk until it's like, all right, you guys are gonna actually exercise for today. Like, great. Like, I want to like definitely have this be like the funniest home videos kind of thing going on here. So let's just kind of see you guys just figure out how to use these machines. So I think at this point, in my notes, I was immediately just like, okay, like they had the whole like farewell to Tommy thing, but I was thinking that he was gonna come back sporadically at some point in these episodes. But man, was I wrong. The only time that we actually see him is at the end of the two-parter of Doomsday, but we don't see him as the Green Ranger or anything. We just kind of see him like just show up um, at the uh, the Power Rangers Day, and he's like kind of technically a part of it, but he's like demorphed, and he's only really there to just kind of shake the Power Rangers' hands and like tell kids, it's like, hey, like they're all equally good, like all of them are, like even though really like probably the best one is the green one, but you guys don't get to see that one yet. Anyways, so but also like the funny thing of it is like I was thinking like, where is Tommy? But then also like, this is not the one episode that I would want Tommy to come back on. I'd be like, dude, I don't blame you if you don't want to come back. Like, here's the remote, Tommy. So, uh, so the Rangers go on and they make their way to this heavily polluted area, and really we have to go on and just have them do flips and tricks and whatever to grab all these items and recycle them in these bags. And I'm like, okay, like this is the stupidest thing. And really the only joke that I even had is really like Billy was going on and needing to take a soil sample, and I'm like, Billy, that's Dookie. Doesn't anybody remember the joke? Like, you soil yourself. Like, I get it. Like, it's plant soil, it's different, but like, you know what? That was the only stupid joke I had. So give me that. Uh, and immediately while I was watching the Rangers like flip around and do cartwheels and all kinds of garbage just to put stupid trash away, like I laughed at this because I thought it was so stupid. I thought I'm like, this is what I'm watching. This is seriously what I'm watching on my day. So uh anyways, Rita's going on ever the counterproductive person whenever there is to be like, oh, like you don't want pollution to happen? Well, I'm going to be there polluting a storm. It's just like the float episode where Kimberly wanted to put a float on a parade, and so Rita's like, well, like I want to destroy all the floats in the parade because she's ever the the opposite of whatever is to be the good thing. She wants to do the bad thing, and because she's a bad girl. Yeah. uh, that wasn't a joke I planned, but luckily I just bizarrely thought of it in my brain noggin. So I'm sure it was hilarious. Everyone died with laughter, and then lived to see another day, hopefully. Anyways, so fencers go on and have to make up Rita, uh, the Poluticorn, to beat down this cleanup club. So here's the thing: they go on in the early parts of this episode and they showcase the Poluticorn, and they show footage of him already like wreaking havoc on the town and whatever. So I'm like, wait a minute, so like, is the Bluticorn, is he already out there wreaking havoc? Like, what's going on here? Like, why are they showing this footage that doesn't make any sense? And then also, like, we have Rita that is telling Scorpina and Goldar, like, well, yeah, like, go out there and just wreak havoc. And yet, like, there really isn't them going out there and doing a lick of anything, and we're just continuing to just do this same boring stuff. So, but if anyways, going to get back to the youth center, so they're going on and they're putting together this recycling drive, and I'm driving to my remote to just be click. And here's where we go on, and we have Jason, we have Zach creatively crushing cans, and then afterwards, we're having Ernie like tell Kim like how specifically to line up these like recycling containers, and it was just like, man, this is just like, what is this? And also, they're going on and like labeling all of these like recycling containers, and I'm like, where am I gonna get thrown in here? Where am I gonna get recycled? None of my name isn't on any of these things. So I was coming up in my brain like any joke that I could possibly figure out what to do here, because that's how just straight up bored I was. Um, but so after going on and going through all of this schlock, we have Rita finally go on and mention it's almost time, and I am like, yes, quick before the kiddies grab the remote because they're so bored with this episode. And so Goldar ends up turning around and sending the putties out, and I'm like, wait a minute. I'm like, wasn't Goldar and Scorpina supposed to go out? Because we're still waiting on Poluticorn to just do a thing. Like, where was that? What? But Goldar is like, oh no, we're gonna send the putties out. We're gonna send the putties. I am not good with my Goldar impression anymore. Like, man, I think I did a way better Goldar impression when I did Mighty Morphin Power Rangers reviews way earlier, and then also I'd try to go back to that Golar impression review voice, but I can't figure out what it is anymore. But anyways, Tommy. Oh, there it is. I gotta always kick into like some name or something because a name like Tommy or Jason could have me go into it every once in a while. But anyways, so Golar is sending up. Golar has to say his own name. He just has to like that's what he does when he's in bed. He just screams out his own name. He's having a good time, but he's screaming out his own name. Anyways, so but Goldar will send out the putties. At least we'll get a fighting scene. Why was this monster shown so early in the episode? Again, I kind of cleared that up already. So, uh, but yeah, like also, like in my brain, like I had seen so many episodes where all the Power Rangers did was just do Megazord battles and you never saw any like hand to hand stuff. So I'm like, oh my god, we're actually seeing fight scenes in this show? Wow! Something different. So yeah, uh so the Rangers go on and they collect all these bags and they put them together all in this one location. And so Bulk goes on and he takes advantage of that. And I think also like some of this stuff was probably done uh the wrong way. But anyways, like that's me doing a review and me going on and needing to Sentai footage it away. Oh yeah, I said the things in the right way. No, I didn't. But it'll seem like I did because I transitioned well. No, I didn't. Anyways, so uh, Book wanting to look good in this documentary, he goes on and sees that all of these bags are around this one location. So he decides that he's going to say that this documentary that he did all of this good work himself, just lie. And then when he goes on and he does have these bags, and Bulk again is telling him about like, hey, like I can't get a good camera angle. Can you move here? Can you move here? Can you move here? And then Bulk ends up going on and literally falling on this banana peel, and he falls backwards. And Skull's like, oh yeah, I'll edit that out. So we then come to find by the end of the episode where uh Skull ends up saying like, "Oh yeah, I'll edit that out. Oh yeah, it'll look great. Yeah, yeah, yeah." And when we actually get to Bulk's project of his documentary, everything looks in every way to just be like, okay, how can we make Bulk and Skull like the worst we can possibly make them, as well as also like have them be edited in a way that everything that they were to even say nice is to be edited to have them say that they had said it poorly. So like they could have just been themselves this whole entire time and not had to have edited this thing out. Uh, because logically, you just have to always have Bulk and Skull in a negative light, and like it gets to the point where like these characters for the longest time have to be treated and put down so much so consistently that eventually the only redeeming arc that eventually they do get to do is become cops, and still they don't do a really good job at that. But like at least they just become cops. You can just kind of figure out a way to just like, well, hey, like we've treated them so poorly throughout the years. Let's give them some good thing, at least. So let's move on here. So, I've already covered the banana peel thing. So, yeah, I really think I did skip around quite a bit in this review. But, anyways, so the Rangers are going on and they're cleaning up some debris, but it seems that the debris is getting bigger as we would come to find that this debris is to be putties. So, as the putties are flipping their way into action here. So, uh, again, like so much so, I kept like noticing how there was actually fight sequences in this episode. So I just had to keep putting that in my notes. Um, like I was like, thank God for this. Like I've never wanted to be so happy of just uh like uncostume, unmorphed fighting or fighting of any kind that isn't Megazord related. Uh, so with the putty fight, we have like the putties that are doing cartwheels, and there's just flipping, and I was just like, woohoo! Like, I could not have been happier. So, and then all of a sudden, after all the flipping and the cartwheeling, then finally, the Pluticorn ends up coming flying in, and I'm like, yay! I was happy about a unicorn. It was weird, but I was just so happy about this. So, the Rangers, of course, when spotting this monster now coming into play, they have to morph. And every single time they morph, I realize now that every single time after they morph, they have to do the stances and whatever, and they have to be like Power Rangers, and I'm like, that is getting just so annoying. And they also in like Megaforce have to go on and be like Super Mega Win or whatever. But I'm like, you know what? Like, at least the Super Mega Win thing, yeah, that could probably get really annoying. But at least that actually makes sense to like, hey, they win all the time. Whereas like after someone goes on and morphs and just shouts the word Power Rangers as a team, I'm like, yeah, we get who you are by now. Why do you have to go on and just keep posing and say Power Rangers? Like I guess it's just as bad as in like SPD, where they have to go on and like stop what they're doing and tell you like, well, hey, I'm 3 blue, or I'm 1 red, or I'm the Red Ranger, Green Ranger, Black Ranger, blah 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 blah. I'm like, why do we have to stop the fight to like rattle all of this garbage off? Like it makes no logical sense. Like if anything, I am desperately waiting for some monsters somewhere to just like poke the Rangers in the eyes and be done with it. Just like, hey man, like shut up and poo, and like yeah, like I'm waiting for that to happen. Even though technically, if they're morphed, like there would be no poking of the eyes. But still, I'm just like, let's have the monsters finally one episode just take full advantage of like and distract these Rangers from either morphing or like because that rarely happens. I think it did happen in like every once in a while. We'll see that the morphers end up getting taken from, um, but the Rangers weren't morphing, but uh, they just dropped them and it fell out of their pocket or whatever. Some episode. But anyways, getting far too in the weeds about this, but I just wanted to just point that out finally because I never said anything until now about it. Because it just every episode, and then also we again within this 5-parter we have Jason who goes on and switches like it's every 3 episodes. Jason has to switch from calling Power Sword to Megazord. People are gonna hate that I bring that up, but it's true. Every like 3 episodes, 3 or 4 episodes, he changes it up, and I'm just like, it's like he's doing it on purpose. He's specifically ticking me off on purpose. So, anyways, let's do this. So, uh, but also, like, I made the joke that I'm like, you know what? They mentioned about like their numbers or their colors, or they mentioned that they're Power Rangers. I'm like, I'm just waiting for like, yeah, I'm the Pink Ranger. I like long walks on the beach. I'm a Sagittarius. And how to really get my goat is this. I'm waiting for that. So, Pluticorn just flies in and blasts and blows all the Rangers, blows all of them, just all together, just blows them, and he blows them real good. Yes, that is a BJ joke, but I seriously wanted to go on and incorporate that as much as humanly possible. Um, Desperately. Uh, and we then get all of a sudden Scorpion and Goldar who jumps in on the whole. Hey man, like I want to come in and like I want to gang up on the Rangers, but Pluticorn is like, no, 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 like I'm freaking like hitting my stride here. So Pluticorn kind of just shoves Goldar and Scorpion aside, and then he continues to just beat the out of the Rangers. And so Goldar is looking at Scorpion and is like, I like this guy. Like this one's got some moxie. All right, like I like the cut of this guy's jib. Anyways, so the Rangers were getting so beat down by a unicorn, like as if this is the Jenna Ortega, Paul Rudd weird goofy unicorn movie. They got so beaten down by this goofy unicorn that they had to teleport out to the command center to really ask Zordon, like, hey, how are we gonna beat this one this week? So so when they get to the command center, uh Jason is going on and asking Zordon about that horse thing. Uh And immediately I was like, well, yeah, that horse thing is, I guess, just too much for you, is it, Jason? So, Billy and Alpha are printing out this huge long stretch of paper thing that eventually ends up getting wrapped up in Alpha. And then I think Alpha ends up falling over. And while that's going on, Zordon is just coming up with filler dialogue. And, like, there's nothing he's going on and saying here. So, but all for nothing to really just have Billy who's to figure out something. So Billy big let's take a drink here. So Billy figures out the weakness of the unicorn, and what do you think the weakness is? Could it be to go for the yabos of the Poluticorn? Do you think it is to just just bat it in the head and just call it a day? No, the weakness of the Pluticorn is its horn. Wow, I would not have thought that at all. That the horn of this Pluticorn would have been the weakness. Freaking anybody should have bet on that and won a bajillion dollars. Because, good God. Um, and I was like, I was looking at Billy and I was like, clearly that is incorrect, Billy. For once, you do not have the final weakness of a monster correct, sir. Yeah, it was the freaking weakness. The stupidest thing. So the Rangers are going on and watching the viewing globe because they have nothing better to do. And so the Pluticorn, it seems, is destroying a factory on the viewing globe. And so the Rangers are like, well, hey, we gotta go back in action, we gotta morph, we gotta do this, we gotta fight this thing. So but here is the interesting thing about this fight though, bizarrely. So Jason goes off on his own and is fighting Pluticorn because he has his dragon power that he secret weapon sneaks in every once in a while to remind us, hey, the Green Ranger still isn't here. But at least Jason wears the shield and is like basically pretending to be the Green Ranger temporarily, even though we know who the real Green Ranger is. We know who the cool Ranger is. And don't try to just mask it, just say it's the Red Ranger. No. Sorry. No, no, no. Mm-mm. No goo. So, and also, like, come to find out in, like, the Super 7 Power Rangers action figures, they end up giving the Dragon Shield to Jason, and then bizarrely not giving him a headpiece, but then also, like an actual face piece. Like, they give all the other Rangers a face piece, but not the Jason one. He doesn't have one. And then also, like, the Green Ranger doesn't have his Dragon Shield. So I'm like, God dang it! Like, not only do we have, like, the flipper ones that they have the shield separately, but then in the Super 7 one, like, he doesn't even have the shield on him. What kind of nonsense is that? Um, I just saw a video where they talked about that. I'm like, it's see, it forces you to probably buy two action figures because those things are just so freaking cheap, anyways, right? I'm sure they are. Because I'm out of the action figure game. It's been a while. I bought a lot of the early, well, not early-ish, but I bought the Tommy action figures from some of the ones that he was in, and I was like, yeah, I'm not gonna collect any more than that because I know there was like lightning collections going on at that time, and I was like, no. But anyways, let's get back to this. So yeah, like I said, Jason fights Pluticorn separately while the rest of the team goes after Golar and Scorpion. Scorpina. I want to just call Scorpina Scorpion King because again, I'm reminded about that whole rock and, and Scorpion thing and like just again, why did I see that visual but then never again? Why was it a thing? Please help me figure that out. I want to know why it doesn't happen ever again. I want it to happen all the goddamn time. It's gonna be great. But anyways, so Jason needs to figure out how to chop that horn down to size. Uh, as Jason needs to uh, ask that of us quickly, and as the team needs him, so he. No, wait. Let me correct what I said here. So Jason is trying to figure out how to beat the Pluticorn, and as his team is in desperate need of him, he then realizes, like, well, hey, I gotta make this battle end quicker with me and the Pluticorn. So he goes on and he gets his dragon shield, he makes it appear upon himself. And so Jason goes on and is to slice the horn off of this Pluticorn's head, and Dunzo goes to Pluticorn, but then Rita ends up making the Pluticorn grow, and so they end up calling for the Zords. And immediately when they call for the Zords, I cried in my own brain because I'm just like, I don't want to see freaking Megazords. And again, the freaking next episode, they don't even Megazord it up for the one monster I wanted them to. So in the Megazord fight, Pluticorn flies and blows the Megazord. I am a child in my brain, and that is freaking hilarious. So then, in kind, the Power Rangers are like, well, hey, let's call the freaking Power Sword. And Kaslice. Uh, and weirdly, like, the Megazord comes in and, like, flies in and then slices it. And I'm like, okay, that's weird. That's different. So, Rita ends up having a headache. Goldar, again, gives empty promises of defeating the Rangers one day and shaking his fist in the air and whatever again. I'm sure for the 80 billionth time, like this is the same old nonsense that we've seen over and over and over again. So, at the U Center, we have to go to this weird bit of news coverage that keeps happening on TVs all the time. We even get it in the Bad Reflection on the U episode, but actually the Bad Reflection on You episode actually makes more sense than what they do here, because really they're just kind of recapping. They're like, the Rangers uh beat Rita again, and I'm like, who cares? Like, of course they did. Like, logically, why do we need a news capping thing to recap that the Rangers beat the? Like, what is the point of this? Like, I get it that it's like it's a realism thing that you have to go on and have people watching the news, but like, it just escapes me why there has to be a consistent thing on the show. I just don't get it. Anyways, so Ernie ends up alerting the Rangers of more recycling as we start to see like all the characters just starting to stack all of these recyclable things, and they stack them into stacks, like these big massive like Billy does this whole weird uh pop can pyramid thing, and then next to that there seems to be like these bottles that end up getting stacked together, and then all these paper newspapers are stacked together, and then Bulk and Skull comes in, and guess what they're gonna do? They're gonna come in here, and they're gonna be flipping and flopping, and they're gonna crash through all of these recyclables and have them all fall over. And Skull is gonna be recording all this, and so really, like Skull's gonna be like, "Well, I'm gonna edit that out." Yeah, sure you will. So, uh, we then turn around, and so this is to turn out to be by the tail end of this episode. So finally there is to be the next project of this school class, and so this ends up being Bulk's turn, and so Bulk is like, oh gee golly, I don't know if I have the video here, and then Skull ends up rushing into class. He's like, I got it, I just edited it. And so they end up putting the tape in there, and it ends up being every single bad thing, and edited up to where it makes Bulk look bad in every way possible. So every bit of falling, every bit of just poor exercise equipment use, everything in between, uh, a compilation of them basically just falling down or falling over. And so as the video is going on and Bulk is be getting more and more upset, and the way that this episode ends is Bulk uh, chasing after Skull to end the episode, as everybody is to go on and laugh. But of course, Bulk looking like a schmuck again. So, with that said, let's get to the next episode. So, this is the episode that I actually did like. A Bad Reflection on You. Oh wow, the Twin Man was actually voiced by Bryan Cranston. I guess I should actually look to see who voices these people, but that was the only thing I actually noticed. So we have a second villain that Bryan Cranston, I guess, did voice. It seems so. Good for him. Who knows if he actually legitimately remembers if he voiced this character or not? But regardless, here we go. So, uh, in the beginning of this episode, we have Rita at the Pandora's Palace. She's going on and setting up that Twin Man will be a tougher opponent for the Rangers in this episode. Having Putty's also become the Rangers again. This is really interesting to me. But then also, like, Scorpina is going to be leading this team. So it's like, okay, like, wouldn't the Rangers, like, be less confused by a bunch of their doppelgangers, but they're with Scorpina? And, like, wouldn't that kind of give something away there? But I guess that's also to have the viewer maybe possibly get less confused, but it is what it is. So, but it kind of, like, it hurts the ruse a little bit. Anyways, we also would come to find that Rita, within her planning, is to want to have the goal be to ruin the Rangers' reputation. And I was like, yes, like this is a stellar idea. Like we've gone on to have so many times in like superhero things where at some point we would always come to find that there is to be this doppelganger story where Spider-Man is to go on and do these horrible deeds, and then we would come to find out that the like that Spider-Man is actually to be the wrong Spider-Man, and it's actually to be like Mysterio, or maybe it's to be Chameleon, or some other just dude who put on a mask that day who looks just like Spider-Man and whatever. Like at some point, like Flash Thompson wore the Spider-Man suit briefly uh, for I think some play. I think in some Spider-Man episode. Anyways, so but immediately when I heard about the whole like ruining the Rangers' reputation thing, I'm like, yes, like what if you could really go on and have like an evil doppelganger like really ruin someone's life and like have them like break up with their girlfriend or like injure their best friend or like go on and like really like make a person lose their job or like do a lot of horrible things and just be like, oh well, like it was my evil twin, baby. Like if you go on and you watch like an episode of Smallville, like eventually when like Clark has an evil doppelganger or someone that swaps into his body, like there's horrible consequences that go into that. And also there's times where like Clark will have like the red kryptonite and like he becomes like the worst of himself and he ends up saying all these things that he regrets and yeah, so a lot of just interesting stuff plays out of those episodes. Let me pause here for a second. All right, I was to have horrible just cut mouth because it's just um and already like we're not even the second episode in and I'm already feeling that way, which is great. Great. Anyways, so uh weirdly whenever we are to see a human ranger and they're evil, like eventually we'll see that Tommy becomes evil again and it's all about like I think it all ends up being about the sword. And so his eyes red. And so eventually also within this episode, whenever you see the evil versions of the Power Rangers, you see that their eyes are red, but then also they're wearing sunglasses to definitely make you aware that they're the bad version of the Rangers when eventually the good Rangers of the version of the Power Rangers come in, then you can kind of tell them apart. So, so yeah, so the the evil doppelganger putties end up switching to look like all the Rangers, and they're wearing sunglasses and they have red eyes. So, oh, also, I think in the Turbo movie, if I'm not mistaken, like, did Kimberly and Jason also have like eventually red eyes in that movie? Where again, like, I just remember the line of like, "I'm the one with the muscles and the power." That's all I remember from that movie. Um, and I think also, uh, Kimberly says something about like pink is out or something, or like she says some kind of condescending line when she faces off against um, Catherine, and like it's some weird, goofy line like that. But anyways, moving on. So, uh, but if anything, I really wanted to applaud the whole sunglasses thing as just smart writing for once. So, uh, going into it, the evil doppelganger human rangers make their way into Angel Grove High, and like as soon as they walk in, Jason shoves one person, and they make their way to this water fountain, and they end up like taking these tools and they're ripping this water fountain out, and they end up pouring, I believe, this baking soda in it, and I'm like, okay, what is the whole plan about that? Like, what stupid kind of prank is to go on here? And of course, it ends up getting really stupid, but it's the only way to kind of get them into tension. So here's yet another time where we of course go on and have Kim become evil on the show. So I'm like, okay, how is Kimberly gonna get asked out by Skull again? And then Skull is eventually asked the actual Kim about all this, and uh, and Kim's gonna have no memory about it again, and then Skull's gonna get rejected again, and that's what happens. So, but weirdly, when Skull does go on and ask out Kim, Kim ends up calling Skull Sweet Lips. I got a good mile out of that. Um, and I thought that was hilarious. So let's go on to the following part of this. So all of a sudden we have this nerdy kid that ends up coming to Billy. It's like, hi, Billy. And so Billy ends up taking this kid and has this weird, goofy, like pizza pasta joke thing. And like Billy takes the kid and slams him against his locker, and then chucks him onto the ground, and then the kid falls, and then all of his crap is just all over the ground. And but he had this weird like pizza pasta joke that I'm like, what is this coming from? Like, why was it like, was the kid supposed to have like acne or whatever? Was there some kind of pun on like pizza face or something that they like couldn't have figured out how to? I don't know what that came from. It made no sense to me. It must have been written in there for them to just have some stupid joke that people have to just be like, what was that about? Because that's how I felt about it. So, so again, they end up going on and pranking this water fountain and then walking away. So the principal makes his way, and I don't know the full name of this principal. I'm just calling him the principal because logically I know at some point the principal goes on and does something with the science class in one of the episodes, but I'm just gonna consistently just keep calling him the principal. Because why does this guy actually legitimately need a name? Because he's rarely on the show. Compared to Miss Appleby, who, like, she's the only teacher and, like, always the teacher for freaking ever. And also, like, I couldn't just call her teacher, I have to call her Miss Appleby. You can easily just title away the principal. So, and people would know who that is. So, why do I have to go on and explain all of this? I know I'm eating up so much time doing so, um, but I can't apologize enough. But it happens, and then I have to just explain it because that's how my brain works. So the principal takes a drink, and all of a sudden the fountain is bizarrely like it's spewing obviously water off the side, but then again, like it's like hitting him with this kind of weird, like it looks like whipped cream. It does not look like soap. And like the floor is even flooding up with this like whipped cream like substance. And so the principal ends up like slipping and falling all over the ground, and then when the actual rangers, because they weirdly just arrived at school just then, the principal ends up spotting them. It's like, oh, you're in detention. How does the principal exactly know that it was actually them who had gone on and done said prank? But again, I guess if you'd have to just have been there, and I don't know, like it was a been there kind of thing. But maybe he just kind of saw them leave at some point. I don't know. Maybe he has cameras. I don't know how that worked uh, in my brain. So, uh, and then also evil Jason in the background. It's like this is only the beginning. Uh, but when the Rangers go on and they get their detention, throughout this episode, I just weirdly was thinking of the Breakfast Club movie, and then also I remembered at some point because I kind of thumbed through the videos again. I had gone on to watch Beauty Babalea, blah blah blah, Babalea. She was to go on and compare the Power Rangers to the Breakfast Club. And watching this specific episode, I immediately made that connection. I was like, yeah, like the principal goes on and is putting together this whole detention thing. I was waiting for him to like, hey, like, you mess with the bull, you get the horns, kind of thing. Like I was expecting that, but it didn't actually happen. So, anyways, the principal ends up giving the teens detention, and immediately Breakfast Club in this brain. So we transition to the detention, and uh, come to find out, the principal ends up putting this detention together. Then he's like, "Well, yeah, I'm just gonna leave for this meeting." I'm like, "What the heck?" So like, he's supposed to sit there and do this whole meeting thing, but he's like, or do this whole detention thing, but like he instead just leaves. I'm like, wait a minute, couldn't you have had any other teacher just watch over these kids? That's just. But anyways, so come to find out, Jason is sitting in the wrong seat. That's not named after him, and so Bulk has to go on and point that out to Jason that this is actually Bulk's seat. And Jason's like, well, is your name on it? And Bulk is like, well, actually, yes, it is. Weirdly enough, Bulk can't even spell his own name correctly. That's how bad this character is. And come to find out, Bulk spells his name with two U's. And so immediately I was like, well, the letter of today is W. Because double U, W, anyways. So, uh, and also here is where Skull ends up asking Kimberly, like, well, hey, what about that date? And Kimberly, like, what are you talking about? And Billy ends up looking at like Skull. It's like why would Skull think he would have a chance with Kimberly? So uh, we then turn around and find that not only does Bulk have a seemingly lunchbox, but it's basically a lunchbox that is to have like uh, a clown car approach to being a lunchbox, because he's endlessly pulling out food, even if it doesn't make sense. Like he's pulling out pies, he's pulling out this huge Subway sandwich, he's pulling out all of this food. That I'm like, dude, that would not fit in all that box. Come on, like, come on, Bulk. Like, and then also like he's really like he's having a Thanksgiving feast over there. I'm like, wow, okay, all right, cool. Um, like, hey man, do your thing. Um, and then Skull is like looking at this feast, and Bulk is just like, "Oh, here you go. Like you'll get a consolation prize." So And the consolation prize ends up like he ends up getting this like pop or this cola, and he ends up opening it and it sprays all over his face. And then when he tries to like run around with Kimberly to try to get the pop to spray in her face, it ends up just kind of going in Bulk's face. So and then Bulk hits Skull with the pie. It's just the anarchy ensues in this episode. It's just riveting, I'm sure. So uh and then also when I was thinking of uh like Kimberly like being asked by Skull, it's like, doesn't Skull know that at one point Tommy and Kimberly kissed? Like, shouldn't that be a talk of the town? She's like, well, yeah, like Kimberly's spoken for. Um, but anyways, so, but nothing ever happened after that. Like, we completely forgot Tommy existed after that. So, like, we never got a dance. We never got to see if, like, the progression of Tommy and Kimberly's relationship happened after that. That's what I would have wanted to frickin' see. But no, we didn't get to see any of that. So, anyways, uh, moving on. So, uh, so, uh, the Rangers realize that they can't leave uh this detention, and no, wait, let me see here. Let me check my notes. Um, la, 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 la. Oh yeah. So, okay. So the Rangers realize that they can't leave detention, and if they are to try to sneak out, the principal is going to end up finding them. Because Kim ends up saying like, "Well, hey, maybe we can leave," and Bulk and Skull are telling the Rangers like, "No, no, no! Like the principal is going to pull her right back in 3, 2, 1," and then he does so. So here's where we have the doppelgangers who end up looking like this. And they make their way through the town and they start beating people up. Uh, the doppelganger Kim ends up going on and ends up taking the chair and beating somebody with it. And Jason ends up taking his blade blaster, his doppelganger. He's like, surprise! And he's blasting everybody. And so Billy and I think Zach, they end up beating up some people and blade blasting them, and the carnage ensues is freaking awesome. And like it's weird to just want to just see Power Rangers just beat up people all day long, but also in the Sentai version, you have at some point where putties actually are more violent in the Sentai version than they probably are in the actual show. Like we go on and we see putties that actually like choke people or uh like there's certain putties that actually slice into people and or certain not putties but certain minions that actually slice and kill people, and it's actually more interesting than the American version where they're not doing anything like that. And at certain points they end up putting like boots to people's heads and I'm like, all right, like this is really cool. But anyways, like crushing their heads, it's cool. Anyways, moving on. So, uh, but this was really entertaining. So, back to the detention. So the Rangers are looking and they're so bored, and Bulk and Skull, uh, seem to just finally just be at a wit's end. They have this weird detention survival kit, and they have this just kind of come out of nowhere as if this is some weird episode of Looney Tunes now. So Bulk grabs this bag and pulls up this TV because he wants to watch his favorite show. And so he ends up watching this cartoon, and then all of a sudden, this cartoon ends up getting interrupted by this special bulletin. So, as well as also Billy ends up calling Bulk and Skull watching these cartoons Neanderthals. I'm like, so like you're kind of alienating your own audience because I'm sure like the kids are coming and watching this on Saturday morning cartoons, as well as also watching, um, which of course will also be the show. So, like, did they try to alienate their own audience here? Like, I'm maybe just grasping at straws. But anyways, uh, this special bulletin tells us that the Rangers are turncoats and they've joined the forces of evil. And the Rangers are going on and they're hearing this broadcast. I'm like, what? Who? Huh? And they're shocked by this news. Jason saying that they would do no such thing. Uh, and like these Rangers, like they're feeling like they're watching some weird, goofy Ultra Dimension or Twilight Zone episode. It's very strange. So while they continue to hear this news report, Jason's like, the Rangers are being framed, um, because he can't go on and say that's like, well, hey, like we're here, like we can't be there also. So, but then he's looking at Bulk and Skull. He's like, oh, the Power Rangers, they're framed, they're getting framed here. It's a frame up job. So here's the funny thing though. So the news report ends up mentioning the Rangers are being the same hooligans they put out of business. And immediately when I heard that, I was like, oh my god, this is freaking hilarious. Because I'm like, this is such the weirdest statement to go on and make here. First off, you say hooligans, but then also you say that, like, the Rangers are becoming, like, evil, and on top of that, like, they ran Rita out of business. What business was Rita in? Like, what was she making, like clay putties on the side? Like, was she uh was she making like spells for the stock market? Like, what kind of side hustle was she doing beyond trying to beat the Power Rangers every week? Like, what kind of business was she doing? Whatever. Um, but anyways, I just thought that that scene was hilarious. So Bulk and Skull are watching this news report and they're like, ah, like the Rangers, they're finally turning evil. All right. Um, so at the command center, Alpha can't believe the Rangers are turned evil as Zordon claims that Rita has reached a new low. And immediately when I heard the words like new low, I'm like, what is Rita doing? Like, is she limboing? Like, how low can she go? How low can she, like, I guess that kind of phrase is still used this day, but I'm like, also, I'm thinking like, well, is it going to be the new low next week? Is it going to be the worst thing next week? Because eventually, like, Jason turns around back at the detention, and like he claims that this is the most evil plan ever, and immediately I'm like, well, tune in next week where they end up saying the same exact statement but slightly tweakingly different. Because I'm like, yeah, like it's funny how like every single week they have to say that Rita has made the worst plan that she could possibly make, or the monster that they faced against was the hardest ever because they have to build up that this episode was way better than the last, and really, as far as writing goes, it's probably not true. So, uh, so when going on and having the Rangers watch on television their evil doppelgangers, I was immediately thinking like, why can't the Rangers just go on and take Rita and just sue her for copyright infringement and really take her out of business if she really had a business to still have here. So but if anything, with the consistent news coverage that we keep seeing, where they end recycling this footage over and over again, saying that there's another battle that happens, but there isn't, we have the team that is kind of in this detention hall, and they're like, yeah, like, I think we should try to leave and get out of here. And they're thinking, like, well, yeah, but how are we going to go about doing that? So they realize that since Bulk and Skull are in the detention, that there's no way for them to morph out. And also over the loudspeaker, they end up calling because of emergency services for no one to leave this area. So I'm like, I'm sorry, isn't this like afternoon detention? So why is it that they have to go on and like have this to be said? I guess there is some, I guess, after school activities that still take place in the school, but there is some outside of the school. Why aren't they saying anything to any of those people? Anyways, moving on. So, uh, Jason goes under the idea of like, well, hey, we should try to morph out. And Zach is like, well, hey, like, I have a suggestion. He makes a plan. So Zach is wanting to go on and put together a magic trick for Bulk and Skull to have it supposedly that the Rangers are going to are going to disappear, and that's going to be the magic trick. So this is a stupid magic trick, but it ends up working for Bulk and Skull's feeble minds. So what weird thing of it is that Bulk and Skull, like, they not only have to put these blindfolds on, but then they have to cover their ears because the Rangers are gonna morph, and then once they morph out of there. I'm like, wait a minute. Like, I've seen it to where the Rangers morph and then they're stuck still in the same location. Like, how is it that the morphing will like get them out of there? I don't know, that's just me. But anyways, so the Rangers morph out of the tension and they appear in front of their doppelgangers. So, uh, which again has Scorpina with them, so that's the thing that should stick out like a sore thumb. Anyways, uh, so the Rangers are face to face with their doppels, and Bulk and Skull finally give up, and so what ends up happening is they eventually go on and they look to like cupboard to cupboard and they look through the entire classroom and they try to figure out where the Rangers are and eventually they give up and then they just like, well, hey, like we'll just tell the principal that like the Rangers aren't there, and so they go to the principal and by that time like the Rangers so easily go on and beat this monster, they end up reappearing back at the detention hall, and like they end up getting back in their chairs. And then when the principal does come in, like it's egg on Bulk and Skull's face again because like, oh well, the Rangers were there at the detention. Like, what are you guys talking about? And so, but getting a little ahead of myself. But regardless, I can say that bit of stuff to just get that over with. So, da, da, da. So, uh, the Rangers fight their doppelgangers. Uh, like the first thing we see is that Trini is fighting her doppel, and like there's a lot of, I think, like either them like the doppels like kind of spinning in the air, but they're like holding on to one another, or there's a lot of just like this like test of strength thing going on between uh, the doppels and the originals, and so that's kind of interesting to see this just kind of struggle consistently going on. We also have like Jason and his doppel uh, had this like sword fight, which becomes really interesting. But anyways, so Trini and her doppel face off, and then all of a sudden, Kim is fighting her double, and Kim ends up getting into this just kind of like arm drag thing where Kim desperately asks for Trini's help, and so Trini runs over there. The only problem is Trini ends up beating down uh, the good version of Kimberly, and then Trini is to uh, try and protect the double and say like, "Oh hey, yeah, if you're hurt, just get behind me." And then Kimberly's, who's evil, is like, "Well, I'm not going to need that," and just starts choking from behind Trini. And I'm like, you're almost kind of like massaging her shoulders. You're not really choking her. Like if you're gonna actually choke her, like you should kind of be doing it from like this way instead of going like. It seems like she's like touching her shoulders. It's very weird. But I guess if you press or put pressure on that like that one spot, I guess hard enough, like I guess it looks like you're doing something, but you're really not doing anything. You're not really choking anybody. Um, but so Trini like starts to fall over in pain, and so Kimberly ends up using her bow weapon and fires off an arrow to then take out her double, and that's when the evil Kimberly is being revealed as a putty, and she ends up having the uh, or they end up having the putty. I think go away after that. There's no evil, and then that's how they start one by one starting to take out these doppels. So uh, and then also like Trini and Kim are like together, and Kim is looking at Trini. It's like, oh, are you uh, are you the right one? And Trini's like, well, yeah, let me prove it. And then she throws her weapons at her double, and her double then ends up getting hit by them and ends up turning into the putty. And it's like, all right, okay. So the weapon is to be the attack here. So uh, Billy faces off against his double, and he ends up lancing his double. And at this point, Rita is now assuming that, like, oh man, I'm gonna lose. I'm gonna lose. So eventually, also, Rita will turn to Finster and just be like upset by the quality of monster for how specifically this monster gets so easily beaten. And Rita, in the beginning of the episode, ends up boasting about how great this monster is going to be, but legitimately, the monster is way weaker than uh, half of the other ones. So, back with Bulk and Skull. Uh, Here's where they look for the like every single cupboard to see if the Rangers are hiding in there, and Zach ends up struggling with his double, uh, but you end up seeing Zach end up using his battle axe and kind of chopping down his double, and that's how he kind of takes him out. Jason and his double are doing a sword fight, which actually will look really entertaining, and we finally, by the end of this, find that like, well, there's only one double left, so that ends up being Twin Man. So uh once Twin Man is to be revealed, Twin Man ends up doing these kind of interesting strikes that we've kind of never seen from other monsters. And he ends up doing this kind of weird mirror attack where you start to see his face on multiple parts of the screen, and then you end up seeing the Rangers in multiple like parts of the screen, and he is doing this mirror attack. And I was like, okay, this is interesting, and to see him just kind of um, like take down the Rangers that way. Then of course the Rangers just turn around and they're like, well, okay, like let's just combine all our weapons and kill this monster right away. Um, and they end up using like the power blaster, like cannon looking thing where they combine all their weapons. And so, and admittedly, here's where I groan, where I'm like, wait a minute, like Twin Man isn't good enough for you to like Megazord it up? Like what the fuck? So, uh, we all of a sudden start to see like these random people of the town just coming to the Power Rangers, and they're all like, yeah, we knew that you guys weren't turncoating against us, like we knew that these weren't the right Rangers. We knew that you were gonna save the day and help us. uh and so the funny thing about that is, like, I had just gone on and watched this one movie where like this one girl ends up being like the sole survivor, and then she ends up turning around, and after being the sole survivor, come to find out like there's some problems when being the sole survivor of something, when there's a lot of other people. It's like, well, hey, like what happened to my son, what happened to my kid? And Natalie doesn't really have any answer, and like so everybody is like ripping and tearing her apart, like because like they're like, hey, what happened to my brother or my sister or my this or my that? And Natalie doesn't legitimately have a good answer, or the only answer that she has is like, well, that person died. And I was thinking of that, and it's like when looking at this, like you have a number of characters that are to eventually all become injured by the Power Rangers. It's like, well, yeah, like that's all good and well and all that the Rangers go on and save the day, but then you also have the people. It's like, well, hey, I ended up getting hurt by those evil ones, and so like you don't know legitimately if the Rangers were just playing evil temporarily, and who knows when that's going to happen again? Because there has been an evil Ranger that worked alongside with yeah. There's a whole lot of rabbit holes that you can go on with here. So then also like when the Justice League ended up going into being accused of something, they ended up deciding themselves, well, hey, we'll all get arrested and we'll go to jail until we can clear our names because there's still that other team out there that is going on and doing something bad. So, anyways, so Bulk and Skull is still looking for the Rangers, but they decide to give up. And here's where they go to the principal. It's like, well, hey, uh, like these goody goods, like they're not here. And so the principal's like, oh, really? And so he's like, well, hey, if the kids aren't there in that office or in that classroom, like I'm gonna have you in detention till you're 50. So Rita is upset for the quality of the. Yeah, I already kind of said this, where she goes defensive, like, hey, like, so uh, so the Rangers reappear at detention, and they get back in their seats very quickly, and so when Bulk and Skull appear back in the classroom and see the Rangers, they're like, wait a minute, like, how did you do that trick? And the guys are like, well, it's just magic. And I'm like, oh yeah, like it's misdirection and it's mirrors, like they said. And so by the end of the episode, we again have Bulk and Skull with egg on their face, and they're going to be in detention till they're 50. So that's the way this episode just kind of plays out. So moving on to the Doomsday Part 1 and 2. So again, if we finished up the last episode in Angel Grove High, we start the next episode in Angel Grove High. So Kimberly is reading this newspaper to find out that Angel Grove decided to dub today Power Rangers Day on this newspaper, and the mayor is hoping that the Rangers will appear morphed uh, to a special event to celebrate. And the Rangers are like, well, hey, do you think we should go? Yeah, I think we'll definitely appear there. So Bulk and Skull are kind of hearing this off in the distance, and they're like, well, hey, yeah, if the Power Rangers are going to appear, maybe we can kind of sponge off their success. And so, but weirdly, what they plan to do is just kind of stupid. They decide upon themselves that they're going to go to this event and they're going to weirdly wear these superhero outfits. And then people buy into like the whole superhero thing. It's like, oh, yeah, well, show me your skills, uh, Bulkster and Super Skull. And they end up just kind of doing all these goofy moves, and they end up doing all these posing, and everybody just starts all laughing at them, and it's really dumb and stupid. But like we go on and have them do this, and perform this goofy act. So uh, Rita also wants to go in to like, well, hey, like if the Power Rangers are gonna have this special day, I need to do something special for them as well. So she ends up realizing that she can put like her own special Megazord together, which ends up being the Cyclopsis. So here's where we get the rarity of Rita ever going on and making witchcraft or spells. Uh, like I guess this thing is so difficult to summon or channel or whatever that she ends up having to make a whole spell out of it. So we again have after the claiming victory by Goldar, once there's a possibility that the Zord is going to appear, we have both Jason and Zach who are making this way to this Power Ranger Day event. And as they're going in there, they end up looking at this map and they're getting a little confused. And they think that they should have met their other friends like right at this spot, and instead they're met with Angela. So Zach ends up asking Angela out again, and he gets rejected again because logically he is not a Power Ranger. And Angela's like, well, hey, if you would have been a Power Ranger, I would have dated you in a second. And Zach is like, well, hey, maybe I can just morph. And Jason's like, no, 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 no. Like, wrong. Like, we're not going to do that now. So, because if anything, Zach wants to morph ahead of time because some of us have that problem. So, Billy, Trini, and Kim love this event, but Kimberly misses Tommy. So I'm like, oh, we actually remember who this guy is now, do we? So, but this is all to tell us that eventually we will see Tommy by the end of this two-parter. So, Bulk and Skull go to this newspaper stand, and here's where they switch in their superhero costumes. So, immediately when I saw Bulkster and Super Skull, I saw Bulkster's belt and I immediately loved it because it's made out of food, bizarrely, and I just really enjoyed that weird cosmetic of it all. So Jason finally, when meeting up with the rest of the group, it's like, well, hey, do you guys think that we should morph now? And they're like, yeah. So uh, we would come to find that uh, Bulkster and Super Scroll end up leaping onto the stage, and here's where they go on, and they start to just kind of steal the limelight, and they also just end up making a goof of themselves, needing these Cape Crusaders to show their skills. leads the crowd into laughter. So, uh, all of a sudden, we start to see more and more that people are in this crowd disappearing. Not because of how bad Bulk and Skull are, but they just really just start to just teleport seemingly out of there, which is getting Rangers more and more confused. So, Jason, after this event, is to have less and less people within it, is to call upon Zordon to like ask like, okay, like what's going on with all these people missing? Come to find out, there's to be some weird, goofy uh, vortex beam that Rita from the moon is going on and like teleporting all these people out of there. So Zordon has Alpha track the beam, and so uh, Rita's plan is to go on and take Bandora's palace and have it end up on Earth. So that way Rita can then go on and like have a closer eye on Cyclopsis, but then also she also has to summon Lokar here to help Cyclopsis in a way. So she has to do a lot of stuff like on the ground floor of actual battle here. But again, we end up stealing the Sentai pilot to put together this whole event here. So, da, da, da. Um, and I don't know if I've mentioned about the whole Sentai pilot footage, like the skyscraper getting ripped off the Sentai footage, and let me just let me re-explain this. So in the pilot of Jew Ranger, there's this skyscraper that goes on and is to just start wreaking havoc in the town, and like all of a sudden everybody's just kind of running away from this skyscraper, and then eventually the skyscraper goes up in the sky and then falls back down with the Bandora's palace on top of it. And this Power Rangers episode like steals from that. And uh, what happens in the Sentai pilot, none of the rest of this ends up connecting with uh, with that Sentai pilot, but just that. But I just wanted to just mention that. So Cyclopsis ends up coming from like the gap in this ground that they end up creating. Then he just appears. So uh, Alpha and Zordon notice on the viewing globe that Goldar is appearing into Cyclopsis, and Zordon and Alpha ends up calling the Rangers to morph and call for their Zords. So moving right along, you guys remember the Muppet movie. So here's where like we end up seeing like the Megazord like act, I feel, much differently than I've seen the Megazord in previous episodes. Normally, like the Dino Megazord is always like confident. It's like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna go in here and I'm just gonna clock every um like monster that I've ever seen. It's gonna be easy breezy. This time around, like we start to see that the Dino Megazord is a little bit more scared for this battle. I was like, okay, that's a little weird for the Megazord to like show fear. I thought that was just it was like shaking in its boots. But so anyways, I guess this is to like just showcase like how the tides have turned for the Rangers in this episode. So the Rangers realize Goldar is driving the Cyclops. It's like, okay, like, is that a real shocker? Like, plus also, like, what, how good is really Goldar? The people should care that Golar is driving this thing. Like yeah, like there's sometimes where like Golar put the boots to Tommy or Jason when they weren't morphed, but this is a completely different situation. So we start to see some momentum going in the favor of Cyclopsis, where there's a few punches and a blast, and the Rangers are already desperately asking for emergency powers. Jason calls for the Dragon Zord for Cyclopsis, uh, and once the Dragon Zord appears, basically just Cyclopsis just goes and just outmaneuvers the Dragon Zord, just moves right back on to like, okay, well that was great. Like, let me go right back to the Dino Megazord and continue to just pound away at that. So Cyclopsis uses a lifting power. It's like the Jedi force power, where it can like levitate something and then um, throw it off to the side, or like how we see in like Star Wars movies where like Anakin ends up slicing an apple. Same kind of thing here. So uh, the Rangers are now desperate to then switch to the Mega Dragon Zord. And here's also the goofy thing. It seems that everything that we do with this Megazord to beat Cyclopsis, when it seems that Cyclopsis ends up becoming resurrected and Lokar is also controlling Cyclopsis and making him even more powerful, really, like, there is to not be any moment where, like, the Rangers, I feel, really drastically change tactics from one thing to the other to make it to be any different of a fight from the first time they beat Cyclopsis to then the second one, but that's just me. So the Rangers switch to the Mega Dragonzord because I'm not going to say that battle mode crap unless it comes in my notes somewhere. So there's this weird thing where all of a sudden there ends up getting this like smoke thing coming to play where the Tyrannosaurus has this like I think weird smoke attack, but then I think Cyclopsis ends up uh like having that attack backfire on Tyrannosaurus and it comes back at him and then that attack somehow works. Something like that ends up happening. Something with this smoke. It just looks weird. I'm not quite sure what that was. And the Mega Dragon Zord uh, ends up getting a blast from Cyclopsis, and then Cyclopsis ends up continuing to just kind of just boot stomp uh, the Mega Dragon Zord, and then we turn around and have Cyclopsis that chain attacks both um, Megazords and just kind of throws them down, which I thought was a really cool visual. And then all of a sudden, Titanus, the uh, the one that brings together the Ultra Zord, like he comes in and he starts firing off, and so Titanus frees the other Megazords of their chains, and then he comes in and is to create the Ultra Zord, and that's when it ends up kind of like fire everything, and they end up beating Cyclopsis so easily the first time around, and Golar is like, "Oh no, I'm losing," so he disappears as Cyclopsis falls. So Rita, not so willing to just take that loss, uh Rita, because she's now on Earth, Rita takes her wand and blasts Titanus to fall into the earth. Like there's this weird dirt hole that Titanus just falls further and further through, and what's left of the Megazord from the Ultrazord ends up trying to go on and grabs Titanus, but then Rita blasts the Megazord. So yeah, so like Titanus just falls further and further into uh, this sinkhole, and supposedly like towards the later half of the episode he returns, but and he's recharged, but yeah, it's uh like we just recently have it to where it's like I guess none of these Zords just die weirdly. So here is where Rita goes on and she summons Lokar. And I don't know exactly what the title of this episode was, but Lokar, if you do not know, because you may have just plugged into this review, there was to be this Mutitis episode where Lokar was to have that be his first debut episode. And that again, that episode reminded me of like Attack on Titans, just because of the way that the monster looked in that episode. Um, but anyways, so I just wanted to mention that as a reference. So, um, finishing off this part one episode. So after Rita ends up resurrecting or resummoning Lokar, she then resurrects Cyclopsis. So at the command center, uh, the Rangers are looking on at the viewing globe, and they realize that like okay, well Cyclopsis is out there again. Like we need to act. We need to do something. And Alpha and Zordon are going on to telling the Rangers like, well, yeah, like about that, like your Zords, like they're drained of power. Like there's no way that you can go on and just easily have them fight again. And the weird thing of it is like supposedly they say that like well hey the Rangers like once you can use your Megazord like you have to go on you have to beat Lokar. I'm like isn't the focus on them beating like Cyclopsis again? But like it ends up being just so wonky and so weird. And like either way, like there's no like definitive thing that made me think that they were uh going to beat both Lokar and Cyclopsis like all together. Yeah, it just that bleh. um like you could have had two different Zords and like had them separately. One take out Lokar and then one take out Cyclopsis, but I guess that's just me. Anyways, so the part of start of part two. So Zordon gives a recap while the Zords still need time to charge. Supposedly Alpha is mentioning how they need 12 hours. I'm like, we got 20 minutes here, baby. That's not gonna happen. So uh, so Jason is like, well, what are the Megazord like? What, how much power is it that they have now? And they end up telling him it's like, well, they're at half power now. And immediately when they end up stating it's like, well, yeah, like the Zords are at half power. Immediately, I'm like, I'm sorry, like I'm sure Jason or the Power Rangers have no clue what half power is. Like these people are not good at all with percentages. Again, I have to state that like they like I think they just don't even know like Rick Steiner or Scott Steiner math. If you guys remember that promo in WCW. So the Megazords are now at, or the Megazord or Zord or whatever, they're at half power, and Zordon ends up giving the Rangers an ultimatum, like, well, hey, you guys can go on and you can take these Zords out here and face off against this foe, realizing that he's probably going to whoop your butt because he's even more powerful and you're at half power. But go out there anyways and just give it your best. And also, like if you lose this fight, you're probably going to lose everything. You're probably going to lose uh, the Zords. You may lose your power. Like you may lose everything altogether. Like the Morphin grid maybe can't even handle that you're like doing this. Like Zordon throws everything at them, and then they're just like, no, okay, all right, like let's just go out there with half power anyways. It seems like the logical reason to do. And also, I'm like, eventually they throw this huge risk at them just for none of it to count at all. They basically lie to them. That's what they pretty much do. They lie to them with this big, huge, massive risk that never really comes true. So, and they could have just gone on and just waited another 12 hours. They could have just waited it out. So, but the Rangers are just like, well, our city is at jeopardy and those people are missing. And the more and more we wait here, like we're risking those things. So they decide that like, well, hey, uh we're just gonna grid it and just do it at 50% power. So uh the Rangers morph into their to transition into their Megazord. So Lokar ends up doing this weird, goofy cloud breath because I don't want to go on and just say that Lokar blew the the Megazord because that would have been still a funny joke in my stupid brain. So Lokar blew him, and Cyclopsis turned to slice into the Megazord. Uh, the Megazord ends up losing an arm because they were at 50% power. How many other times has the Megazord been at 50% power and they never lost an arm before, but they lose an arm now, bizarrely? I don't know why. Um, and Cyclopsis goes for uh, a kick as so the Rangers are going on and they've already like depleted, like they only have like the 50% power and that's it. And the Rangers are going on and they're asking for like backup emergency super awesome sweet delicious power which they don't have. And they're down to one arm and like, wait, we gotta keep going, we gotta keep going. So Kim warns the Rangers that they only have one more hit before they're done for. And I'm like, man, like these Rangers are just losing this fight. Like, what was the point of all this? Like, just you should have just waited the 12 hours and maybe you would have won. Because that's what's gonna happen anyways. So Jason, now desperate, calls for the Dragon Zord, and the Dragon Zord enters to lose its tail and gets taken down. Uh, and then I think at this point we have Cyclopsis, who ends up having these chains like take the Dragonzord's tail and just kind of latch onto it. And then Lokar ends up doing this blast to both of the Megazords, and at this point, like the freaking Megazords, they are donezo. So, when hearing Lokar's voice and him talking, the first time I ever heard Lokar's voice, I'm like, you know what, that voice sounds weirdly familiar. And then finally, when I was to hear Lokar's voice again in this episode, I'm like, oh my god, is that Lord Zed's voice? Did Lokar be the same actor who did Lord Zed's voice? And I didn't think about that until now. It sounds the exact same character. But anyways, so excuse me. It's been quite a day. I haven't slept. I've watched all these episodes, and now I'm trying to do my best to recount everything. And yeah, it's been a very long day. Because I just seemingly don't have time to watch these episodes and then also review it because it takes so long to do. Uh, but hey, like, uh, I'm I wanted to watch Power Rangers. I did. I wanted so much so to specifically watch these episodes. I wanted to get to them so quickly because I'm like, yeah, like these are gonna be better than the stuff I watched before, and that's what I was really hoping for, and they were. I feel in my eyes. Anyways, so uh, at this point, so Lokar freaking dusted these Zords so much so that like I'm like, yeah, like Kimberly said, like one hit and they're done, and that was that one hit. So all of a sudden the Megazords start to disappear piece by piece by piece. I'm like, what's going on here? Like, are the Zords destroying? Like, are they done? Like, are they evaporating? Is it just that time of okay? Like, we're gonna have to get new Zords now. Are they gonna have to go to Delcia or Ninjor and get replacements? So, and then while the Megazords start to disappear and fade and whichever, Jason is telling the Rangers, like, hey, abandon ship, let's get out of here. And they end up falling to the ground and they end up unmorphing, and then they're back at the uh, that Power Rangers Day event. And so the Rangers are trying to call Zordon, but their communication is jammed. And so Billy ends up going on and explaining, like, well, yeah, like, I'm sure Rita ends up jamming the signal. And Billy also then goes on to explain that the Zords, once they get to a point of getting beaten down so much so that the Zords end up teleporting to a safe location where they can recharge. So I'm like, okay, cool. That's great that Billy has to go on and explain that because Alpha or Zordon can't. So come to find out, Billy has a solution for them to go on and try to talk to Alpha and Zordon, and that is to go to his place because there's some equipment there that they can teleport to the command center. So while that's going on, we come to find back at the command center that Alpha and Zordon, since Rita bizarrely is now on the same plane of existence because they're on the same planet as the command center, it seems that Alpha and Zordon are realizing that they can like seek files and data from Rita in the Pandora's Palace. So like, all right, we can use this stuff against her and maybe reverse whatever is going on here. But like, I'll get to that in a minute here. So we also have Billy go all the way to his place. And I'm like, man, the rad bug is right there. Like, you can just take the rad bug to the command center. But no, like, they just weirdly concoct to, like, well, hey, no, 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 we're gonna like just fix our communicators and then teleport out. Which again, I was like, the red bug is right there. The handful of times that they used the red bug in the past. So, uh, while they're of course going on and at Billy's place, Jason ends up seeing it's like, well, we need to come up with a plan, or maybe it's finally the end of the Power Rangers. And he like looks off. He's like, oh, this little part right here just felt so soap opera-y, uh, of stating that it just felt just so cliche. Um, but anyways, back with Rita. Rita is feeling like she's gonna win. So she wants Goldar and the Putties to go and find the Rangers to just kind of finish up the job. So Goldar and Putties appear, and Billy is telling Jason, like, well, hey, like, you guys need to give me a couple of minutes. And Jason's like, all right, okay. So Goldar ends up just taking his sword and just knocking some stuff over, but he never touches the Rangers. And then by the time that Goldar still does a lick of nothing, because that's what he always does, the Rangers end up finding out, like, okay, like, our communicator's working, let's teleport out of here. And Goldar's like, no! And it's like, Goldar, you did nothing. You just stood there like a dummy. So, uh, so yeah, so I covered all that. I covered all that. So, uh, the Rangers go on and they teleport to the command center. And so now Zordon has something to tell the Rangers. So Zordon figures out that Cyclops' weakness is the changing of battle modes, which basically, hey, just keep changing up your Zords consistently, just weirdly like confusing Cyclops so he won't have the ability to be able to adapt. And eventually we'll come to find that Cyclops' uh, like system eventually just kind of shuts down because it just can't figure things out. Regardless of what Lokar's powers is helping him do, or Goldar is I guess moving toggles and hitting buttons and whatever, like just weirdly, the Cyclops thing just stops working because of the weakness that Zordon and Alpha figures out. So, and I was like, well, how different is that from any normal episode? Is it just quicker that they're switching between Zords? So, but if anything, like again, like Cyclops just has a weakness to change, I guess. So by the time that the Rangers are now in this command center and everything is starting to come up Millhouse for them because the Rangers are asking Zora and Alpha, it's like, well, hey, how are the Zords? And they're like, well, yeah, like they're fully charged and ready to go. And then all of a sudden, Titanus is like, well, hey, I'm digging myself out of this hole. And like, again, everything is coming up Millhouse. So like, okay, well, let's go. Let's morph. And so they end up morphing, and then they slowly like call for the Zords this time around. Like, we have to milk every minute here. Like, they're definitely calling out for like the saber-toothed tiger Zord and uh the mantis Zord and the triceratops Zord and the tyrannosaurus Zord, and and they have to individually call every Zord out like they've never done it before in their lives. So as the Zords individually all come out, they all just go and they blasty blast, and then they turn into the Dino Megazord. Then we have Jason who calls for the Power Sword, because heaven forbid you call it the Mega Sword, because you gotta just switch those names out. So Jason then Dragon Flutes and then calls for the Dragon Zord, and the Dragon Zord ends up doing the finger missiles of doom, and then it does the tail attack, its traditional attack that does in every single battle that it always does. Sometimes you get the finger missiles of doom, sometimes you don't get them, but quite more often you get the tail attack at least. So, because that's the one different thing about that Zord than the Dino Megazord, because it doesn't have a tail. Because why wouldn't it? Anyways, it should. So then they switch to the Dragon Zord battle mode. I should have just said Mega Dragon Zord because that's really what it is. So Lokar blasts the Dragon Zord. So here's where they go on and they give the call. They do the hand. They call for the Ultra Zord. So the Ultra Zord is called. So here's where Goldar is in Cyclopsis, and the computer is telling him that the system is locked. And so Goldar is like, well, I'm going to lose this, so I'm just going to bail. So once again, once Cyclops is to be defeated here, as before, this time around Goldar is turning to Rita and in desperation, telling them to get the palace and them out of there because maybe the Ultra Zord is going to blast them again. But at this point, like the Rangers have already jumped out of their Zords, so it's not going to happen. Evidently, Goldar doesn't realize the Rangers had already jumped out of the Zord. So the Power Rangers make their way back to the Power Rangers Day fanfare, whatever goofy thing, whatever event that they were, I guess, to call whatever that event was. And fans slowly but surely start to return to this event. And we have at one point have the principal, and he's saying like, "Well, the Power Rangers must have saved us," and Mrs. Appleby's like, "Oh, my hero," and like all of the goofy, weird crap that you have to go on and say here. So, and I thought it was kind of goofy and funny. So, the Rangers come in and the fans like, yeah, and they're like the Rangers like high fiving people off to the side as if like they're WWE wrestlers entering a ring. Because like once they get to like the long stretch of getting to the ring, they have to like do stuff. They have to like take photos with people and autograph things, and like I was assuming that was gonna happen. So while the Power Rangers are making it to the stage or ring or wherever they're going, we start to have these kids that are all just starting to make these conversations like, who's the stronger Power Ranger? Is it the Red Ranger that's the strongest? Is it the black one that's the strongest? Is it the pink one? Ooh, the pink one. Ooh. And so Tommy goes on to put all of them to rest and just be like, oh man, like, you know what? All of the Rangers are really good in their own equal way. But then I think Tommy should have turned to be like, but that green one, though. But that green one. Wait till you see him come back, kids. You're gonna be like, yay, good episodes again. Maybe not, who knows. So, uh, so then Tommy appears to see all the Rangers, and he's like shaking hands with them, and like they're really taking these like long strides with Tommy, with shaking their hands. Like, and I'm thinking in my brain, I'm like, who is in the actual suits? Like, is it the stunt doubles or is it the actual like Austin St. John's and like Walter Jones and Amy Jo Johnson's? Are they actually in the suits? I'm kind of curious because I'm like, how much is this show gonna like phone things in right now? And I think it would be kind of funny to just like have thought that it was Tommy actually shaking hands with the actual Rangers, or maybe they just kind of stiffed him and they just gave him all just uh, body doubles, and he's now shaking hands with just the stunt guys. So, uh, so after the Rangers are going on and making their way to the stage, and then the mayor is to go on and thank the Power Rangers. They end up doing like the hands in, and like ah, and like I would just be like cowabunga. No, okay, well, so the Rangers make their way back to the command center, and so Zordon is congratulating, because I can't say congratulating correctly. I have to say that again. Zordon is congratulating the Rangers, uh, and ends up giving them an ultimatum this time around to just be like, well, hey, like, you know, you guys have gone well above and beyond, like, being Power Rangers, and you know what, like, there might be some things coming in your future, like a peace conference, or there may go on to be a time that you may want to come back to being a Power Ranger someday because once and always is always around the corner. But like, you know what, like, do you guys want to go on and just kind of quit being a Power Ranger? And funny enough, like every single one of the Rangers are like, absolutely not. Like, I'm gonna do this, the wheel will fall off. And I'm like, well, evidently you guys haven't seen the later seasons of your own selves, where you're just like, heck no, I'm freaking done. Like, and then Tommy's like, well, I guess I'll come back later, but you know what? Like, I'll do it for the money though. Yeah, and those low ratings that the freaking seasons have. So, uh, so the Rangers are coming up with all these reasons for not to be not Power Rangers. I'm like, yeah. But then again, like we'll come to find out that like the real reason why like Trini, Walter, and Jason actually left was because of what they were getting paid. But like you hear that kind of stuff, but then again, like Walter Jones would go on and say that he like felt bad that he like wasn't there for like the movie and like all the other stuff and like but yeah, but it was just the fact that like a lot of these characters weren't getting paid that well, and supposedly they went on to do stuff afterwards after they had become these Power Rangers and they got paid pretty well. So and then look at them now, like doing conventions and whichever. But anyways, so Alpha is going on and she's starting to sneeze because of some computer virus. And again, the Rangers go on and they all come together and put their hands in, and that's what ends the end of this episode. So, this last one, all right, gone on to this last one here, final stretch, home stretch here, people. Only we're not actually close to 2 hours. Well, I'm sure I'm gonna burst that bubble. So, in this very last episode, which is Rita's Seed of Evil, uh, plants being grown for a science project with the purpose of them being left out in the wild to grow on their own. And so all these rangers have all of these plants that seem to be showing real promise. And so the principal is putting together this science class. He's like, okay, Rangers, well, like I want you guys to send these plants out of the wild and see if they do well, and I'll grade you because of that. So Bulk and Skull are going on and putting a bet with the Rangers that, like, since their plants look way progressively better than the Rangers, that, like, well, hey, like, we'll definitely send ours out in the wild and see who does better. And then Kim goes on and looks at Bulk and Skull's plant, and finds out that they're both plastic and fake, and that reasonably it's like how are you guys gonna do any well of anything in this class? So of course, ever the spin doctor Rita is, and she ends up finding like, well, hey, like, well, I want to make my own trees grow, and Golar is like, well, yeah, I'll send Squad out to uh raise the octoplant seed uh that'll surround and destroy the planet when it grows all over, and like we end up getting seen this Earth visual with like this like huge like root sticking out of the planet, and just like, okay, this is cool. So the Rangers all go out and they one by one start planting their seed, and they really milk this. I really feel like they really milk this like I'm milking this review. I've talked way too long here. My apologies. So Bulk and Skull are off in the distance, and after they see the Rangers leave, they're like, we could steal all those plants, and we can get the better of their grades. And so Bulk and Skull, while making their way there to try and steal the Rangers' plants, they bump into Squat, who was going to go on and plant the Octoplant's seed. So Bulk and Skull bump into Squat. They get afraid of Squat. They run off into the porta-john or the porta potty, and they end up getting stuck in it. And eventually, what ends up happening is they end up getting so stuck in the porta-john, and Skull really wants to take a crap that eventually, what happens is that Skull never takes a dump, and they end up getting driven off by uh, these people who are collecting these porta johns, and eventually by the end of the episode, both Bulk and Skull arrive at the class and like, well, hey, like, we should be given a really good grade because of our story about what happened to us. And the principal is looking at Bulk and Skull and seeing that they basically are probably covered in fertilizer or feces or whatever, and all kinds of gook. And the principal smells them, takes a whiff, and then falls over. Uh, so, but covering all the Bulk and Skull stuff, which I'm sure I'll reiterate at some point because I don't remember where all these notes are going to be put in place somewhere. So, Squad ends up planning the Octoplant, and as the Rangers all of a sudden start to notice Squad, putties end up coming into play to distract the Rangers because really at this point now it's a race against time in this episode. So so an earthquake all of a sudden starts to erupt as the Rangers have gone on and dispatched the putties, and because of this earthquake and them not knowing exactly what's going on, the Rangers end up teleporting to the command center to try and figure and piece the puzzle of things out. So, Alpha and Zordon for this time are unsure about what the heck is going on. Uh, for once, so Jason decides on his own to backtrack back to the park to retrace Squat's steps to try to figure out what he was doing there. So Jason ends up making his way back to the park and finds that this source of this planted seed ends up having this weird energy field around it that Jason, it seems, cannot go on and penetrate with his own hand. So while he's going on and doing that, all of a sudden there starts to be these weeds or these roots or whatever that come from the ground and start to slither around and get closer and closer to Jason and try to almost go on and attack Jason, forcing then Jason to then morph. So And I think they go on and they tie Jason up at one point. So Rita and Goldar, it's like, well, hey man, it's only a matter of time, and they're waiting for this octoplant to bloom. So at the command center, alarms are going off. Viewing globe is being popped up, and so the Rangers are watching on as Jason uh, is now trapped by this plant. So the Rangers are like, okay, well, we need to go out there and help Jason out. So they all morph. So the Rangers come, they find Jason, they free Jason from the vines, as if like, man, you know what? Honestly, we could have some weird, goofy edit in here where the Rangers are facing off against Poison Ivy, and it would freaking work in this episode. It'd be sweet. It'd be a weird, goofy crossover that wouldn't make any sense. So, uh, the Rangers end up making their way back to that weird, bizarrish seed thing that still ends up having the shield around it. But bizarrely, Jason ends up surmising that like Jason had talked to Alpha about this, and the shield is now weakened, so they can try and dig this thing up, but they don't get around to it because, of course, Rita ends up stopping the Rangers with again more putties. So I'm just like, man, really more putties? Whatever. So uh, so Scorpina and Goldar end up appearing also to try and face off against the Rangers, and they, as like similar to the Green Ranger and Goldar, they combine their swords together. Like Scorpina has that weird boomerang like sword, but if anything, they combine their swords together and they do this big massive blast attack. And also like the stuff that they were kind of doing was kind of being very effective against the Rangers. So so Zordon is alerting us that the octoplant is blooming, and so the octoplant goes on and blooms, and then immediately Rita ends up like, okay, make my monster grow. So so the Rangers end up, of course, calling for their Zords, and this time around we have the octoplant that's like blasting all the Zords. I'm like, all right, wow, like this is slightly tweakingly different. So the Rangers quickly change from like, okay, we gotta go from our Zords to now being a Megazord, and so weirdly here the Dino Megazord is like kind of shaking and scared again in this fight, and I'm confused if maybe if they like recycled or reused that footage from the other episode, because I feel like everything in this episode, or just Power Rangers in general, like just gets reused, and so I'm just kind of seeing old footage again and again. But anyways, so uh here's where we weirdly start to just get in and out, like Rita like quickly reacting to things, and I find this stuff so useless, but I guess it's again to just have them edit in something that Rita can do just to kill time, and but it just looks so stupid. So we come to find that the octoplant goes on to wrap a vine around this building and the Dino Megazord. And so what happens is that the Rangers end up calling for the Megazord. It's not the power sword, it's a mega sword. Uh, and so, God, I gotta say that it's just like so. The Megazord comes flying in and cuts the plant uh, to free the Megazord, and so all of a sudden the Octoplant is like trying to get to the Megazord, but then looks at the building, and I guess weirdly because all the windows are shown to give some kind of weird reflection, we all of a sudden have the Octoplant that is just kind of looking at this building instead of at all like looking at the Dino Megazord because I guess it has some weird vain or vanity thing about it. I don't know why. Uh, but then also, like, Rita is kind of watching this battle unfold, and again, she has to do these, like, 2-second reactions. And Rita is talking to the plant and telling her, uh, look out, like, what are you doing? Like, these stupid kind of things. And so as the octoplanets look on at its own reflection, Jason's like, well, hey, it's looking at its reflection. Let's take it down. And so they slice into it, and Guns Dunzo is to be, of course, this plant for the day. Uh, so now that I've gone on and I've already explained that Bulk and Skull are screaming for their freedom, but it's never going to happen in their porta-john, and so we have the Rangers now back at this school, and the principal ends up going on and greeting the Rangers. And I'm like, how is it this principal even knows that the Rangers had planted their plants by this location and could grade who for who? Like, you'd think you'd have to go on and give everybody an A just because they did this project. Um, but anyways, so the principal is praising the students for doing a good job planting all these plants. And then here's where Bulk and Skull rush in and they demand that they want these good grades. And the principal's like, well, like like he looks them up and down and he smells them and then he falls over. And that's how they wrap up the episode. So I'm going to wrap up this review. It's 2.5 hours, guys. It's not 3 hours for once. Thank God. Um, but if anything, I have no idea what is to happen somewhere down the road. If anything, I'm so far thinking of so many other seasons besides Mighty Morphin. It's like in my mind, I'm like, man, I can't wait to get to um, like so many of these seasons that I haven't really gone on and actually seen, like Lost Galaxies or even rewatching In Space again seems entertaining in my mind, bizarrely. Um, because really I know that In Space is a really good season finale. And also, like, I don't know if there's any other really good, like, season finales for any of the other Power Ranger seasons. So, like, I'm just kind of curious to watch all of these season finales now and just definitively just say, like, well, no, like, the only really good one is maybe In Space. Or maybe there's other ones that are just like, man, like, I really liked how, like, they force the Rangers into like just like having to lose all their powers just to get us to the movie or get us to this or get us to that or whatever. And like it could be really interesting to see how these seasons all play out. And with that said, like talking about the movies, I'm not sure if I really want to go on and review the movies. Like I don't think that I'm going to get anything out of talking about the films, so I might just skip all of them. Like, it might be smart to watch the the Turbo Power Rangers movie because it has so much tie into the show, whereas the first movie, like, you can basically just skip it and you'll be fine. Um, and weirdly, because the movie was strangely enough at that time like owned by Fox, and so weirdly the show just had to re uh, do the whole movie within the show just because like they just somehow weirdly could not connect the movie with the show, so they just had to opt out to do that in that way. But weirdly now, like since the movie is owned by Fox and Hasbro is working along a partnership with Disney Plus, like maybe there's gonna be something there that they can, I don't know, just be like, well, hey, maybe we can give you the movie now or something. Maybe there's some kind of partnership they could work, but who knows? But anyways, I think it's about that time to just get the heck out of here so I can go to sleep and then do this all over again. Come up with another 5 to 10 episodes and hopefully review it. Um, really, also right now, like, here's the thing. I was to go on and and want to review a movie called Neon Maniacs, and in all honesty, I got through a good chunk of that film, and I had a decent amount of notes. And the more and more I started to watch that movie, I started to just really give up on it because I was like looking at my notes, and my notes just made me just sad and depressed. Um, and when looking at the movie, I'm like, okay, like they give us like this one big scare at the beginning of the movie, but then after that, it's like a lot of dead air. So I'm like, ugh, like I don't know how well that movie's gonna turn out. So maybe I may decide to not review that movie. I'm not sure. Um, but I feel like I need to go on and try to do something other than Power Rangers every day. And then also, like, there's nothing that's going to eventually go on and move the needle uh, for this channel specifically, not even Power Rangers anymore. Maybe this is going to be the last. Uh, maybe this is eventually going to be the last thing that you're going to see me review of this if it just continues to donut hole out. Then again, who knows? I'm gonna probably go on and say that this is gonna like maybe be the last of the Power Rangers, and then bizarrely, just these videos just really do well, and I'm like thinking like why, and then just I don't know, it just needed time uh to just burn away. I don't know, but uh yeah. So I wanna try as much as possible to still be optimistic about the channel. Instead of just at any point just thinking that it's dying a slow death, even though it's been at some points doing um, like surprisingly well with movies that have no right for it to do surprisingly well at. But I'm nowhere near doing like 1,000 views because that was a extreme rarity. Like I went on and I picked uh, the Demi Moore Patrick Swayze movie Ghost one night, and I was like let's throw a Hail Mary and just do Ghost, and because I enjoyed that movie anyways, and surprisingly it just did well compared to a lot of the other stuff that I've been doing lately. But yeah, but I always weirdly, strangely hoped on this channel that like I would just end up doing one thing that ended up being like the turnaround of the channel, or I would just end up doing one thing that just made me um, just either one would turn the channel around, or I would go on and eventually have the channel but do something else also that just made me just way happier, um, that would translate into just like man like just reinvigorate me, but it's not. That day is seemingly not going to come, but who knows. I always want to try to be as optimistic as I can, uh, even though like the numbers don't lie. Um, and I've been lying to myself for far too long. But anyways, I'm gonna get the heck out of here because now at the tail end of this video, it's just sad. It really is. So let me know in the comments below a number of ways to just save this channel. Yeah, I'm sure people are gonna be like, "Oh yeah, just do Fortnite or something." I don't know. I'm sure people just make a bunch of suggestions of stuff that it's like, "Oh yeah, just do videos, but do them shorter." Yeah, like, because I'm sure that's gonna work so well. Because I almost thought about doing that at some point. Just make all the videos just shorter. Just make them like 10 minutes, and then like immediately when I was to go on and do a video about that, I immediately just like, no, I'm just gonna make the video long. And then I just kept doing videos long, like this one. So I'm gonna get out of here to make this video short. So thank you for listening to this guy, because who knows if I'm gonna continue keep on strategically figuring out a way to just keep doing this, especially if these videos start to tank, because I'm no longer good at banter. But anyways, bye everybody. Bye everybody.